The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth before I even realized the car had stopped spinning. Glass everywhere. Dark. Glittering like diamonds under the streetlights. Except diamonds don't cut your skin open and make you feel like your ribs are crushing your lungs. I tried to breathe, but every inhale felt like swallowing fire. My phone was ringing somewhere in the wreckage. Michael. Had to be Michael. I'd left him 3 voicemails already, my voice shaking with excitement about Uncle Richard's will, about the $29 million that would change everything for us, save his failing business, finally let us start that family he kept postponing. But now my fingers were too slick with blood to even reach for the phone. Why wasn't anyone stopping to help? Before I go further, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I like to know how far my stories are reaching, and a like and subscribe means a lot to small channels like ours and will keep these stories coming. Now let's continue. The ambulance came eventually. Red lights painting the inside of my crumpled Honda like a nightmare disco. A paramedic with kind eyes kept saying my name over and over. Jessica. Jessica, stay with me. I wanted to tell her I was trying, but my tongue felt heavy and the darkness kept pulling at the edges of my vision like greedy hands. When I woke up, everything was white and sterile and wrong. The hospital room smelled like bleach and old flowers, a combination that made my stomach turn. My left leg was elevated in a cast. My ribs were wrapped so tight I could barely breathe, and my face felt like someone had used it as a punching bag. The nurse who came to check my vitals had this practiced sympathy in her eyes that made me feel even more alone. Your husband, I croaked, my throat raw. Did he come? She adjusted my foredrip without meeting my eyes. That told me everything. 3 days. I spent 3 days in that bed, watching the door every time footsteps echoed in the hallway, my heart jumping every time I heard a man's voice. Called Michael 17 times. 17. The first few calls went to voicemail. Then he started rejecting them. On the 4th day he finally answered. What? His voice was flat, cold, like I was a telemarketer interrupting his dinner. Michael, I've been in an accident. I'm at General Hospital. I've been trying to reach you. Yeah, I got your messages. I could hear something in the background. Music. Laughter. A woman's voice asking who was calling. Look, Jessica, I can't deal with this right now. My chest tightened and it had nothing to do with my broken ribs. Can't deal with what? Your wife being in the hospital. I don't have time or money for a failure. The words hit harder than the collision that landed me here. What did you just say? You heard me. You couldn't even drive home without crashing. You can't hold down a decent job. You can't give me kids. Honestly, this accident is just typical Jessica behavior. Always creating drama, always needing attention. The woman's voice in the background giggled. It was a sound I'd never heard before but would never forget. High-pitched, young, delighted. Who is that? I whispered. He hung up. I sat there in that hospital bed, my phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone like it might suddenly start making sense. The afternoon sun was streaming through the window, warm on my face, and I could hear a child laughing somewhere down the hall. The world was just continuing like nothing had shattered. Like my husband hadn't just called me a failure while another woman giggled in our home. The inheritance paperwork was in my purse. The nurse had put it in the closet with my ruined clothes. $29 million. I'd been so excited to surprise him, to save him, to prove I wasn't the burden he'd been treating me like for the past year. Failure. I was still staring at my phone when I heard footsteps stop outside my door 4 days later. My heart did that stupid hopeful thing before my brain could stop it. The door opened. Michael walked in wearing a new suit I'd never seen before. Expensive. His hair was freshly cut. Behind him was a woman, young and blonde, her hand possessively on his arm, a massive diamond on her finger catching the fluorescent lights. Well, Michael said, his lips curling into something that might have been a smile on someone with a soul. Thought we'd stop by. Say hello to my ex-wife. The blonde was staring at me, her perfectly made-up face frozen in an expression I couldn't read. Her grip on Michael's arm went white-knuckled. She took a step forward, Then another, her designer heels clicking on the linoleum. Then her mouth opened and a scream tore out of her throat. "Oh my God," she gasped, stumbling backward. She is my sister." The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. I stared at the blonde woman, at her perfectly contoured cheekbones and her wide blue eyes, searching for something familiar in a face I'd never seen before. My mind was racing but going nowhere, like tires spinning in mud. "You're what?" Michael's voice cracked. The smug satisfaction had drained from his face, replaced by something that looked like panic. The woman's hand flew to her mouth, tears already streaming down her face, ruining her mascara. "Jessica. Oh God, Jessica. It's me. It's Sophia." Sophia. The name hit me like a second collision. My baby sister. The one I hadn't seen in 15 years. Not since our mother died and the foster system ripped us apart. She'd been 8 years old, gap-toothed and scraped-kneed, crying as they pulled her toward a different car, a different family, a different life. I'd promised I'd find her when I turned 18, but by then the records were sealed and I had nothing but dead ends and a hole in my heart that never quite healed. "That's impossible," I whispered, but I was already seeing it. The shape of her eyes. The way her left eyebrow arched higher than her right. Mom's mouth. Dad's nose. "Sophia." She lurched forward, then stopped herself, looking between me and Michael like she was trying to solve an equation that wouldn't balance. "I've been looking for you for 10 years. I hired investigators. I joined every reunion registry. And you've been here the whole time. In the same city. Married to." Her voice broke. "Oh God, what have I done?" Michael backed toward the door. His face the color of old newspaper. "Now wait a minute. Nobody said anything about sisters. Sophia, baby, this is just some weird coincidence." "Don't." Sophia's voice turned to ice. "Don't you dare call me baby. When did you marry her?" I watched him squirm, and despite everything, despite the pain and the betrayal and the broken bones, I felt something dark and satisfying bloom in my chest. 5 years ago, I said quietly. "We got married 5 years ago, Michael. When exactly did you meet Sophia?" His jaw worked but nothing came out. Sophia's face went from pale to red. "4 months ago," she breathed. "We met 4 months ago at that business conference in Miami. You said you were divorced. You said your ex-wife had been gone for years." She turned to look at me, really look at me, taking in the casts and the bruises and the hospital gown. "You were still married to my sister 4 months ago." "Still married now, technically," I said. The morphine was making me bold, or maybe it was just that I had nothing left to lose. "Unless you filed papers I don't know about, Michael." He ran his hand through his expensive haircut. "Look, this is complicated. Sophia, sweetheart, let me explain. You married her last week." I don't know how I knew, but I could see it in the way Sophia kept touching the ring, like it was still foreign on her finger. "Didn't you?" Sophia's face confirmed it. "In Vegas." He said it was romantic, spontaneous. She yanked the ring off and threw it at Michael's chest. It bounced off and skittered across the floor like a dying beetle. "You married me while you were still married to her. That's bigamy. That's illegal. And you called me a failure," I added, my voice steady now. "Said you didn't have time or money for me. But you had time to fly to Vegas. Had money for that new suit. For her ring." Michael's panic was shifting into anger. I recognized that look. I'd seen it plenty of times in our marriage, usually right before he'd say something designed to make me feel small. "Oh, spare me the victim act, Jessica. You want to know the truth. I was leaving you anyway. Your mess. Always have been. No job, no ambition. Just sitting around feeling sorry for yourself. I have $29 million, I said. The room went silent except for the beep of my heart monitor, which had picked up speed. Michael's mouth hung open mid-sentence. Sophia had stopped crying. "What did you say?" Michael's voice was barely a whisper. Smiled. It hurt my split lip, but I didn't care. Uncle Richard died. Left me his entire estate. That's why I was trying to call you the day of the accident. I was rushing home to tell you that all your money problems were solved, that I'd saved your failing business, that I wasn't a failure after all. Paused, letting it sink in. But you were too busy with my baby sister to care. Michael's expression transformed. I watched it happen like a time-lapse of rot. The anger melted into calculation, the calculation into something that almost looked like affection. He took a step toward my bed. Jessica, sweetheart, I was upset. I didn't mean those things. You have to understand the stress of the business. I wasn't thinking clearly. Get out. Baby, please. I said get out. My voice was stronger than it had been in years. Both of you. Now. Sophia was still staring at me, tears streaming down her face. Jessica, please. I didn't know. You have to believe me, I would never. I know. And I did. I could see the horror and shame written all over her face. But I couldn't deal with that right now. Just go, Sophia. Please. They left. Michael first, already on his phone, probably calling his lawyer. Sophia lingered at the door, looking back at me with an expression that carved out something deep in my chest. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Then I was alone again with the beeping machines and the smell of bleach and old flowers. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and left nothing but a shell. I reached for my phone with shaking hands and dialed the number on the inheritance paperwork. A crisp voice answered on the second ring. Whitmore and Associates. This is Jessica Parker. I need to speak with someone about my uncle's estate. Specifically, I need to know how quickly I can access the funds and... I took a breath, feeling something hard and sharp settling in my chest where my heart used to be. And I need the name of the best divorce attorney in the city. Of course, Ms. Parker. I'll transfer you to Mr. Whitmore himself. While I waited on hold, I caught my reflection in the darkened screen of the television mounted on the wall. Bruised, broken, bandaged, but not beaten. The door opened again. I looked up, expecting a nurse, and felt my heart stop completely. Standing in the doorway was Uncle Richard. Uncle Richard looked exactly like he had in the casket. Same gray suit. Same silver hair combed back. Same calm expression. Except dead people don't stand in doorways. Dead people don't smile. Hello, Jessica, he said, and his voice was warm and alive and completely impossible. The phone slipped from my hand, clattering against the bed rail. You're dead. I went to your funeral. I saw them close the casket. He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him with a soft click. You saw them close a casket. There's a difference. He pulled up the visitor's chair and sat down like we were having tea instead of defying the laws of nature. I needed to disappear for a while. Legal troubles. Business competitors who weren't afraid to get violent. Faking my death was cleaner than witness protection. My head was spinning, and not from the concussion. The inheritance. The 29 million. Very real. And very much yours. He leaned forward, his eyes sharp and assessing. I've been watching you, Jessica. Had someone keeping tabs? When I heard about the accident, about what that husband of yours said to you, I thought it might be time to make an appearance. You let me think you were dead. I let everyone think I was dead. It was safer that way. But you, kiddo, you deserved better than what life dealt you. Better than the foster system. Better than Michael. His expression darkened. Especially better than Michael. The pieces were starting to click together in my head, forming a picture I didn't quite want to look at. How long have you been watching? Long enough to know he's been cheating for 2 years, not 4 months. Long enough to know he's been slowly draining your joint account. Long enough to know he convinced you to put the house in his name only because it would be better for his business credit. Uncle Richard's smile was sharp as a knife. And long enough to gather evidence of all of it. He pulled a manila envelope from inside his jacket and set it on my bedside table. It landed with a heavy thud that felt like justice. Everything you need. Bank statements, photos, hotel receipts, text messages, even evidence of the bigamy, which, as your sister correctly noted, is very illegal. He stood up, straightening his jacket. The lawyer you're about to talk to? He's the best because I've had him on retainer for 3 years. He's already prepared the divorce papers. Michael will be served tomorrow morning. I stared at the envelope, then at my supposedly dead uncle. Why? Why go through all this? His expression softened. Because you're the only family I have that's worth a damn, Jessica. Your mother was my favorite sister, and when she died, when they split you and Sophia up, I tried to get custody. But I was a bachelor, always traveling for business, and the court said no. I've regretted not fighting harder ever since. He moved toward the door, then paused. The money isn't charity. It's an apology for not being there when you needed me, and a weapon for when you're ready to fight back. Wait. My voice stopped him. Sophia. Does she know you're alive? Not yet, but she will. I've got investigators finding her tomorrow. She's a victim in this too. His hand was on the doorknob. Use the money wisely, Jessica. And don't let Michael see you coming. Then he was gone like a ghost, leaving me alone with the envelope and questions I'd never get answered, and a future that suddenly looked nothing like I'd imagined an hour ago. The lawyer, Mr. Whitmore, called back 2 minutes later. His voice was smooth and confident, the voice of a man who won cases before they even started. Ms. Parker, I've been expecting your call. Your uncle briefed me on your situation. I have very good news. He's alive, I said, still trying to process it. Yes, and very thorough in his preparations. Now, regarding your husband's business, the one he claimed was failing. Papers rustled on his end. It's not. He's been siphoning money into offshore accounts. Money that legally belongs to the marital estate. We can freeze those accounts by tomorrow afternoon. Something cold and fierce wrapped around my spine. Do it. Consider it done. I'm also filing an injunction preventing him from accessing your inheritance. Given that he's committed bigamy, the court will be very sympathetic to your position. We'll have him served at his office. Maximum embarrassment. Good. I wasn't even pretending to be the bigger person anymore. Michael had called me a failure while I lay broken in a hospital bed. Had married my sister while still married to me. Had stolen from me, lied to me, tried to break me down into nothing. But nothing doesn't inherit $29 million. Nothing doesn't have the best lawyer in the city. Nothing doesn't have a dead uncle who came back to life just to give her the tools for revenge. One more thing, I said. My sister Sophia. She didn't know about me. When this all comes out, when Michael's arrested for bigamy, I don't want her dragged through the mud. Noted. We'll make it clear she was defrauded. In fact, she may have grounds for a lawsuit of her own. After I hung up, I opened the envelope. Inside were photos of Michael with at least 3 different women over the past 2 years. Bank statements showing systematic theft. Emails to his business partner joking about his stupid wife, and how easy I was to manipulate. Text messages to Sophia, to the other women, saying the same lies, using the same sweet words he'd once used on me. At the very bottom was a handwritten note in Uncle Richard's familiar scrawl. Don't get mad. Get even. Then get happy. Love, Uncle Rich. I was still reading when Sophia appeared in my doorway again. She'd washed her face, and without the makeup she looked even younger. More like the 8-year-old I remembered. I know you said to leave, she started, her voice small. But I couldn't. Not after 15 years. Not like this. I looked at her, really looked at her. My baby sister. The one I'd promised to find. The one who'd been looking for me while I was locked in a marriage that was slowly killing me from the inside. Come here, I said. She crossed the room in 3 steps and collapsed into the chair Uncle Richard had vacated. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know. It's not your fault. I reached out my good hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. Her fingers were cold and shaking. He fooled both of us. That's what he does. That's what he's good at. I should have known. Should have seen. Stop. I squeezed her hand. He's a professional liar. You couldn't have known. But Sophia. I waited until she met my eyes. He's going to pay. For both of us. Something shifted in her expression. The guilt was still there, but underneath it, I saw a flash of something harder. Something that looked like our mother's stubbornness and our father's temper and 15 years of a little girl waiting for her big sister to come save her. What do you need me to do? I smiled, and this time it didn't hurt at all. I need you to tell me everything. Every lie he told you. Every promise he made. Every single detail. She did. We sat there for 2 hours while she told me about the whirlwind romance, the expensive gifts, the sob story about his ex-wife who'd abandoned him, the quick Vegas wedding that had seemed romantic at the time. With every word the picture got clearer. Michael hadn't just been cheating. He'd been planning. Planning to divorce me right after getting access to Uncle Richard's money. Planning to start fresh with Sophia, young and naive and, as it turned out, the heir to a tech fortune of her own from her adoptive parents. He'd been trying to collect us like lottery tickets. He asked me about my trust fund on our second date, Sophia realized, her face going pale. Oh God, he knew who I was. He targeted me. Probably. I squeezed her hand again. But he didn't know about us. Didn't know you were my sister. That's his mistake. The next morning, Mr. Whitmore called with an update. It's done. He's been served. The accounts are frozen. And Jessica. His reaction was recorded by the process server. I'm told he went pale, then tried to call you 17 times. 17. The same number of times I'd called him from the hospital. Don't answer, Mr. Whitmore advised. Let him sweat. His lawyer will contact me when he's ready to negotiate. But Michael didn't negotiate. He showed up at the hospital that afternoon, wild-eyed and desperate, pushing past the nurses' protests. Sophia was still there, sitting by my bed, and when he saw her, his expression cycled through shock, anger, and finally calculation. You turned her against me, he said to me, ignoring Sophia completely. Poisoned her with your lies. I told her the truth, I replied calmly. Showed her the bank statements, photos, the evidence of bigamy that's going to land you in jail. You can't do this. That money is mine. I'm your husband. You're a bigamist, Sophia cut in, standing up. She was taller than I'd realized, and in that moment, she looked like our mother facing down our drunk father. You married me while married to her. That makes both marriages void. That makes you a criminal. Michael's face twisted into something ugly. You think you're so smart now. Both of you. Jessica, you were nothing when I met you. Foster kid with no family, no prospects, no future. I gave you everything. You gave me nothing but lies. I sat up straighter, ignoring the pain in my ribs. But I'm giving you a choice. You can sign the divorce papers, agree to return every penny you stole, and maybe I'll convince the district attorney not to press charges for the bigamy. Or you can fight me, and I'll use every single dollar of my $29 million to destroy you. The silence stretched out like taffy. I could see him thinking, calculating, trying to find an angle, a way out, a way to win. You'll never find anyone else, he said finally, desperately. You're damaged goods. Broken. Who's going to want you now? Sophia moved so fast I almost didn't see it. The slap echoed through the room like a gunshot, leaving a perfect red handprint on Michael's cheek. Get out, she said quietly. Get out before I do worse. He left. No more threats. No more calculations. Just a broken man shuffling toward a broken future. Sophia sat back down, shaking. I've never hit anyone before. He deserved it. I reached for her hand again. Thank you. For staying. For believing me. You're my sister. She smiled through tears. I've been looking for you for 15 years. I'm not losing you again over some lying bastard. 3 months later, I stood in front of the mirror in my new apartment, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The casts were off. The bruises had faded. The divorce was final, with Michael agreeing to return every penny he'd stolen plus damages. The district attorney had pressed charges anyway, and he was looking at 2 years minimum. Sophia appeared in the doorway, holding 2 glasses of champagne. Uncle Richard just called. He's coming to dinner. Says he has another surprise. Another dead relative coming back to life. She laughed. God, I hope not. One was enough. She handed me a glass. To new beginnings. To revenge served cold, I countered. And family found warm. We clinked glasses. Outside, rain started to fall, washing the city clean. Somewhere out there, Michael was probably in his shitty apartment, counting his losses, realizing that the women he'd called failures had destroyed him without breaking a sweat. And here I stood, $29 million richer, my sister by my side, my uncle alive and well, and a future that finally belonged to me. I'd been called a failure by a man who'd lost everything. The irony was almost poetic. Almost as poetic as the fact that the 2 sisters he'd tried to play against each other had become each other's salvation. What are you thinking? Sophia asked. I smiled, watching the rain paint patterns on the window. I'm thinking that sometimes the best revenge isn't just getting even. It's building a life so good that your enemies can only watch from the outside, knowing they threw away gold while chasing tin. She raised her glass again. I'll drink to that. So we did. And somewhere in the city, thunder rolled, and the rain washed away the last traces of the woman I used to be. The one who'd believed the lies. Who'd thought she was small and broken and worthless. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone new. Someone who knew her worth. Someone who'd learned that family wasn't always blood, and blood wasn't always family, but when you found the right combination of both, you became unstoppable. Michael had called me a failure. But failures don't win. Failures don't rebuild. Failures don't stand in penthouses with their sisters, toasting to futures bright enough to blind the past. I wasn't a failure. I was a survivor. Fighter. A woman who'd turned her lowest moment into her greatest victory. And that, I thought as I took another sip of champagne, was the best revenge of all.